Cancel the game. That's right. The game. Michigan, Ohio State. Apparently doesn't matter anymore. Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hit that free subscribe button, by the way. That will help us out. Thank you for watching. All right, let's get into it here. Ohio State, Michigan. It's not going to be the same anymore. I'll tell you why. Plus, in addition to that, the big house is for sale. You interested? Plus, we'll have our Big Ten classics and live action going into the weekend. So, the last game in November, every single year, the game, as we call it, Michigan and Ohio State. It's been my favorite college football game ever since I can remember. And y'all can have your Iron Bowls and your Red River rivalries and all that. But Michigan versus Ohio State, that's the best thing going in the fall. At least it was. The college football powers are destroying it. You know, the constant greed and short-sightedness pushing all the importance that we used to put on Saturdays in the fall just down the totem pole. In the last year, we went from having 4 playoff teams, which I consistently have said is the right number. 4 playoff teams. That's it. We jumped to 12. Sometime next week, we're probably going to learn that we're jumping to 14 and maybe even 16. That's the only question. It's going to be 14 or 16, but we're going to add more. And it's absolutely ruining the average weekend regular season games in college football, even the big ones. So I'll explain. How's this going to ruin Michigan, Ohio State? Well, when these two played in the last week in November, back in the day, historically, it meant everything. It usually determined a Big Ten champion. It usually determined who went to the Rose Bowl. It usually determined if a coach got to keep his job for the next year. By the way, Ryan Day's new 7-year extension, that affords him the luxury, the ability to survive a 5th straight loss should Ohio State lose to Michigan coming up in November. I'll let y'all discuss that in the comment section. But it also determined if the next 364 days were going to be fun or miserable for the coaches, for the players, for the fans. It was great. It meant everything. Not only was it the best rivalry in college football, I think you can make a strong argument that was the best rivalry in all of sports. It was the most important game of the year, at least it was. Now, it may mean that one team now will go on to the Big Ten championship game. Even if it doesn't, both teams may still go to the playoffs. There's always this safety net around it, which we didn't used to have in the all or nothing scenario at the end of the season. Remember, Ohio State didn't even make it to the Big Ten championship game this year. Look what happened. Boom. National champions. The day's going to come. The day's going to come where both of these teams, Michigan and Ohio State, they're going to face each other in the game, November 30th, last weekend of November. They're going to come in with 0 losses. They're going to come in with 1 loss each, perhaps. And all the game is going to matter. All it's going to determine is who the home team will be on a neutral field the following week in the Big Ten championship game. So they'll play a second time. Now, the game between Michigan and Ohio State was so important. Now, with this new system, it very well could be played and be reduced to see who gets to wear their home jerseys the following week when they play the rematch in the Big Ten championship game. Well, if the game in November is so important, and there are those that say that it will always matter, then how will we describe the Big Ten championship game between Michigan and Ohio State? You know, the regular season one was important. Now what? We're going to play a week later again? This one's really important, right? More important, perhaps. Extremely important. After all, the Big Ten title would be at stake. Surely it would be more important than the regular season game we just played the week before, right? But we're not finished. Here's where things get really messed up. And this is my larger point here today. Because even if the regular season game in November was important and the Big Ten championship game between the two could be more important, well, there's still this strong likelihood that they would play a third time 3 to 6 weeks later in an even more important game in the playoffs or even a national championship. Think about it. A 0-loss or a 1-loss or 2-loss Michigan and Ohio State team, both getting into a 12 or 14 or 16 team playoff, whatever these guys decide next week, especially if the Big Ten is guaranteed 4 teams in the postseason. That's what was being discussed this week before next week's meetings. We did yesterday's podcast on the meeting between Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey, Big Ten and SEC. They have a little pre-powwow meeting before the meetings with the college powers that be with everybody else and all the other conferences and Notre Dame to decide what to do with the playoffs starting in 2026. They're going to expand them. It's going to be easier for teams like Michigan and Ohio State to have the regular season game and still make it to the Big Ten championship game. And even if they don't, chances are they're going to be making it to the playoffs. They're going to be meeting again. It's like a series. It's like a baseball series. It's not a winner take all game at the end of the season anymore. That's what I'm talking about. That's how they're destroying the game at the end of the season. So not only the game of November be not that important, and really neither is the Big Ten championship if both teams are going to get into the playoffs anyway. Both Oregon and Penn State still advanced to the playoffs, even though Penn State lost the game against Oregon in the Big Ten championship. Win or lose, going to the playoffs. Big safety net here. There's no importance like, oh, this is it. Our season's on the line. The season's never on the line until you get to the playoffs. In fact, do you realize this now? Ohio State won a national championship. They were a 4th place team. Ohio State was the 4th place team in the Big Ten this year in the standings. And they mowed through the playoffs and got the national championship. 4th place team, not bad. What about seeding? We're going to play this game for seeding. It matters. The winner of the Big Ten gets a bye and a better seeding. Well, yeah, ask Oregon what they think about the number 1 seed. There are a lot of talking heads out there that will say that the season-ending rivalry game will always matter, no matter what. To an extent, they may be right, because I know I'm always going to watch it no matter what. Maybe that's what it's come down to. It's a game we're all going to watch. Still working off some of that tryptophan and some of the beverages of Thanksgiving on that Saturday, a couple days later. And we'll sit down and we'll watch the game. I will. We will. But instead of this being the end-all, be-all game, it can be one of 2 or one of 3 games between these two. And that's what's going on right now. That part is being torn away. It's being deteriorated. Again, this week, Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti deciding they're going to probably force 4 of their conference teams into the playoffs. So every year, Ohio State or Michigan or both or Oregon or Penn State, they're all getting in anyway, no matter what happens in the season finale game against each other, Michigan and Ohio State. That's what I'm talking about, where they're ruining it. I don't think you can argue against that. I think I'm right about that. So the importance of the game is diluted. And again, knowing if there's going to be a rematch the following week or a rubber match in a third meeting in the following month, sadly, this playoff expansion train, it's left the station. There's no turning back. It's happening. Can't fight it. And the more teams we allow in the playoffs, the further back into the regular season we can go and say, well, this game doesn't matter, and this game doesn't matter, and this game's not what it used to be. I'm telling you, look what happened to the bowls, the mid-tier bowls. And I don't want to fight for that because there's a lot of those I'm not interested in either. But they've gone by the wayside. Nobody cares about them anymore. And that's how we're going to start looking at regular season games in the regular season. Hit me up with your thoughts and comments. We'd love to hear from you. Be sure to subscribe and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way you'll get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And share, like, and follow. Don't forget, you can check out our website, talkbig10.com. That's the number 10, talkbig10.com. All of our podcasts go there, and you can pick up gear of your favorite Michigan shirts, Ohio State pennants, hats, all that right there. Link for you for your convenience. All right, the big house apparently is for sale as long as we're talking about Michigan. I will have the details on that. That's coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. Attention, Big Ten fans. The future of college sports is here. It's transparent. It's very easy. Before we got the Roy app. The Roy app. Name, image, and likeness negotiations. They often happen under the table back in the old days. Before Roy came on, here's something that you could participate in name, image, and likeness with your favorite players at your favorite schools. It's an option for you to get involved. You can choose a player that you like, that you want to support financially. You can decide how much to contribute. You can receive exclusive content for these athletes when they reach out back to you. The best part, if your player transfers, you get your money back. And it's a risk-free way to show your support. The Roy app is giving fans control. No more uncertainty. Now you can provide transparent, impactful support and help shape the team and the future of college sports with your contributions. Download the Roy app today from the App Store and start backing your favorite Big Ten school and the athletes that they deserve your support. This is the future of college sports right here. So join it now by downloading Roy and support your favorite players with Roy. Thanks for checking out Locked On Big Ten and making us your first listen every day, especially you everydayers out there. Meanwhile, be sure to hit that subscribe button for free and share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And check out our website, talkbig10.com. So the Big House is for sale. For years, Michigan Stadium has been the biggest football stadium in the country. And now it's a multi-purpose facility. It used to be only used for 7 or 8 Saturdays in the fall for football games, maybe a spring game, maybe a graduation ceremony or two, but then it largely sat empty. Now it's a concert hall. On September 27th, during the Wolverines bye week, singers Zach Bryan and John Mayer, pretty big names, they're going to perform the first ever concert in the stadium. It's already sold out, by the way. 115,000 people will be there. If you want a ticket, use our Game Time app. They're going to break the North American attendance record for a concert with this outing. Last summer, George Strait attracted almost 111,000 fans at Kyle Field at Texas A&M. So the Big House, they're going to beat it. Going to set the record. Why? Money. It's always money. This is another revenue stream for the athletic department. College football brings in a lot of money, but there's always the need for more. College football spends a lot of money. That's why they always need more. And this year, Michigan and the other Power 4 schools are going to have to pay an additional $20 million in revenue sharing to past and present and future athletes. So why not sell out a few non-football events at the Big House? Why now, though? It seems like Michigan should have been doing this all along. They've had a perfectly good stadium just sitting there. They could be packing it in all along. But sometimes Michigan's a little slow to get with the times with stuff like this. I mean, they didn't even have a night game at the Big House until 2011. That wasn't that long ago. And by the way, that Notre Dame Michigan game in 2011 under the lights at the Big House, that is to this day one of the best football games I've ever seen. Denard Robinson leading the Wolverines. They were down 17 points in the third quarter, come storming back to win in the last minute. It was a phenomenal game. If you missed it, it'll be on Big Ten Classics at some point. Check that out. But to this day, Michigan is very picky, even a little stingy about scheduling night games. They still don't do it that often. And forget about Friday night games. They're just, even though there's a pretty lucrative Big Ten TV contract for Friday nights, Michigan just not doing it. So nope. Don't even schedule us. We're not going to show up. But selling out the Big House for a few nights here and there for concerts, that's like collecting revenue from an additional home football game if you could sell them out. And it's just free money sitting around. There are other acts that could sell 115,000 seats. I mean, Taylor Swift's Eras Tour just ended. That could have sold out multiple nights in Ann Arbor. No question. Beyonce's new Cowboy Carter tour, that could sell out to Big House. Yeah, I get it. You don't want to put the Big House up for sale for events and only sell 30,000 tickets and have a mostly empty stadium. Now you need some big names like the ones we just mentioned. Fill that place up. So now that we know that Michigan is changing, expect the other big acts to follow in. I think I think they'll start coming in droves, start doing this a lot more often at the big house. And keeping with the Michigan thing, still their way of thinking about these sort of things. Another thing they are still slow to change. Another cash revenue thing they could be doing is naming that stadium. Not going to do it. Still Michigan Stadium, or affectionately called the Big House. To date, there are no plans to add sponsorship to Michigan Stadium's name. But if the day ever comes where it's like the Ford Motor Company Michigan Stadium or Michigan Stadium brought to you by AT&T, then you will know that Michigan is all in on the financial times of the day. Speaking of large stadiums, how are those $700 million renovations going at Beaver Stadium at Penn State? Last month, the West Side press box, it was toppled by dynamite, and it'll be replaced by the Pam Health Misitano Family Tower. It's already been paid for. It'll feature premium seating, a new press box, a huge welcome center, and a community space that hosts all sorts of events all year long. That's how they get people to pay the money. Say, we can use this beyond just Saturdays. Just like Michigan is saying, well, we can use the stadium for other things other than football. Penn State making this whole community center built in, and they use it all year round. They got a lot of the new concourses, escalators, elevators, new lighting, new Wi-Fi, new video ribbons, new video boards, suites and club seating, 35,000 square foot lounge. That's huge. In the meantime, there'll be some construction happening during the next 2 seasons that they'll have to work around. The Nittany Lions Blue-White Spring Game, by the way, on the schedule, April 26th. That'll be here before you know it. We'll be previewing a lot of that stuff here on Locked On Big Ten. Penn State opens up the 2025 season August 30th against Nevada, but they open up Big Ten play with a rematch of the Big Ten championship game by hosting Oregon on September 27th. That's the same date as that country music concert over in Ann Arbor. But that day, they're going to be playing at Penn State against Oregon. And that game will be coming off a bye. So Penn State will be ready for the Oregon Ducks on that one. And then they've got their biggest road game of the season, November 1st at Ohio State, as we're looking at the schedule. And you remember, Penn State was this close to getting to that college football national championship game against Ohio State. Lost to Notre Dame by 3 points. That was it. All right. Stadium talk. Kind of a fun little segment right there. Let's talk about some hoops. Big Ten basketball hoops. Let's start with the men tonight. Thursday night, a couple games on the board. We got Northwestern and Ohio State. That's at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific on FS1. It's part of an FS1 Big Ten doubleheader, because after that one, they'll have USC at 20th ranked Maryland. That's at 8:30 Eastern on FS1, 5:30 Pacific. By the way, if you haven't seen Maryland play yet, they got a freshman, big guy, called, his name's Derek Queen. Been Big Ten Freshman of the Week a couple of weeks in a row now. He is rolling. It's a large part of why Maryland is a top 20 team right now, looking to make some noise in the postseason. So look out for all that. As far as the women go tonight, we got 8th ranked Ohio State. This is on Peacock tonight at Indiana, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. 21 ranked Maryland. The Maryland basketball men's and women's both ranked in the top 21. 21st ranked Maryland at Northwestern. That is at 7:30 Eastern on the Big Ten Network. And Rutgers is at Washington. That's a long trip. Rutgers to Washington, going across the country. 9 o'clock Eastern, but that's 6 o'clock Pacific on Big Ten Plus. And then 25th ranked Illinois taking on the 3rd ranked Lady Bruins of UCLA, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific on the Big Ten Network. So a lot of hoops here on a Thursday night as we're warming up, getting ready for the weekend. If you want to comment on any of this, always look for the comments. We want to talk about concerts at the Big House, the renovations at Penn State, you Nittany Lions fans, what you're expecting there, or interesting games tonight on the slate for Big Ten men's and women's basketball, all right there to talk about. All right. In the meantime, coming up, we got our Big Ten Classics and live action. We do this every Thursday. We always have a feature going into our final segment of the day. We do our top 10 Big Ten observations on Monday, Tuesday tweets. Wednesday, we do power rankings. Thursday, Big Ten classics and live action. And Friday, we make our picks with the basketball or the football or whatever we got going on that time of year. So that's coming up next. Big Ten classics and live action, looking ahead to the weekend while you're kind of going through NFL football withdrawal. You're looking for things to watch. We'll give you a few ideas. All that's coming up right here as we continue right here in 1 minute on Locked On Big Ten. All right, let's take a look at some Big Ten classics and live action coming up this weekend on the Big Ten Network. And let's start it off here. I'll put it full screen. If you are audio only, you will. I'll give you all the details here, so you're not missing out on a thing. We didn't put everything on here. We just kind of pick and choose some highlights of some stuff. So Big Ten Network, we'll pick it up Friday, February 21st, all Eastern times. 1 p.m. Eastern. We got a Michigan basketball classic, Michigan and Michigan State. They're going to be playing these because Michigan and Michigan State got to play each other a couple of times here down the stretch of the basketball season. This is a rematch of their January 2018 game where Maurice Wagner scored 27 points and the Wolverines won 82-72 over the fourth-ranked Spartans in East Lansing. And then we follow that up at 2 o'clock Eastern with another Michigan State basketball classic, the 2019 men's Big Ten championship game between Michigan State and Michigan. And the first seed Spartans finished the game with a 10-0 run over the third seed Wolverines to win their 6th Big Ten tournament championship. So Michigan got the regular season match in January, but Michigan State got it that same year in the Big Ten championship. 6 o'clock, we got some Big Ten hockey, 6 o'clock Eastern, Penn State and Michigan State, followed by Notre Dame at Wisconsin at 8:30 Eastern time. On to Saturday we go. Big Ten is, again, Big Ten Network. Big Ten women's basketball, Penn State is at Michigan, followed by the men's game at 2 o'clock Eastern, Penn State at Minnesota. Penn State really struggling this year, and Minnesota, sometimes they look like they can beat anybody in the conference, and other times they don't. Nice win on the road by them at USC. They beat Michigan at home. They really, maybe there's a little spark there for Minnesota here at the end of the season. And then we give way to Big Ten hockey at 6 and 8:30 with Penn State at Michigan State and Notre Dame at Wisconsin. And there they are. If you just flip the screen there. And now, on to Sunday's play for February 23rd. Pick it up at noon. Women's basketball, Purdue at Ohio State, followed by Indiana at Michigan State at 2. So we've got a women's doubleheader at 12 and 2. At 4 o'clock, we'll show some gymnastics, UCLA at Michigan. That's a big one. And then at 6:30 and 8:30 Eastern time, some wrestling, Nebraska at Purdue, followed by Oklahoma State at Iowa. So, again, this will be the Sunday. You're still going through some withdrawal from no NFL football on Sundays. These are some things you can look at and check out and watch on your own. That's why we highlight them here with Big Ten classics and live action from the Big Ten Network, something we look at each and every Thursday right here on Locked On Big Ten. All right, some football stories I'm looking into for tomorrow's podcast, plus some hoops news. I'm always keeping an eye on possible candidates to become the next head coach for the Indiana basketball team, as Mike Woodson is stepping down. May have an eye-opener here on tomorrow's podcast, so check that out if you will. In the meantime, many ways for you to interact with us. Don't forget there's Twitter. Hit us up, or X at TalkBig10, number 10. And also our website, talkbig10.com, where all of our podcasts go. Plus, we group them chronologically or by school. And then we also have links to, if you want to buy any merchandise, shirts, hats, and T-shirts from your favorite school with the logos and all that stuff right there. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Also invite you, get caught up on some of the other ones we did yesterday for a second listen. We would love it if you did that. We will also love it if you tell your friends and anybody you know that's an alum or a fan of the Big Ten that we're out here every single day. We are the most unique Big Ten podcast out here because we do Big Ten news and breaking news, but we also have analysis of that news, and we're not afraid to give our opinion as well. So news, analysis, and opinion, all Big Ten, all under one roof right here on this podcast, Locked on Big Ten. That's what makes us different from everybody else. So tell your friends about us that we're here, and I can't wait till we meet again tomorrow. Thanks for your time today. For Locked on Big Ten, I'm Craig Sheeman. Talk to you next time.